the title of my message is Leading When You Are Not in Charge. Leading when you are not in charge. And I want to say, or to start my message today with this statement that most of the time, when we talk about leadership, we talk about titles, we talk about positions, and we talk about platforms. Maybe sometimes we say things like, when I become a leader, I'll do this and this and this. Or you say, when I get promoted, I'll do this and this and this. Or you say, when people start following me, I'll do this and this and this, etc., etc., etc. But the truth of the matter is this. Most of the time, we spend our life not in charge, but under someone else, or in someone else's team, in someone else's ministry, in someone else's vision. But that does not stop, or does not stop us from being leaders. For example, personally, I have been a church elder for very many years, and that did not stop me from being a leader. And so our message today, when I say that when leading, when you are not in charge, it means you can be leading. Maybe you are not in charge, for example, of a church. Maybe you are not in charge, for example, in a certain group, but you are a leader. So tonight, I want to challenge that thinking, and we start thinking of something on how to support or how to do when you are not in charge. Because in God's way of doing things, leadership does not begin when you are seen. It begins when you are formed. And today I want to take us through to the life of one man, Joshua, to show some of the greatest, because his story shows some of the greatest leader in history that were leading. Even before they were called leaders, they were leading. So Joshua, even before he was known to be a leader, he was leading. We all know that Joshua was the one who took the people, the children of Israel, to Israel. But before that, we knew about Moses. But before we knew about Joshua, before he became a leader, before he got the title, he was a leader. Before we came to know him in Limrite, he was a leader. So the question tonight is simple. What kind of a leader are you when no one has given you a position? So this is what I'm calling leading when you are not in charge. Leading when you are not in charge. You might be in a group. You are not the one in charge of that group, but you are a leader. Maybe you are a leader with a different position, but you are not the one in charge. So when you are leading, when you are not in charge, what do you do? When we look at the life of Joshua, we see some very key things that Joshua did, and he made him to be the leader with a difference, the leader that we normally see, the leader that we can even today follow his example. So let us build some few things on the foundation of Joshua's life. In Exodus chapter 24, verse 13, Exodus 24, verse 13, the Bible says, "Then Moses set out with Joshua, his assistant, and Moses went up on the mountain of God." Here we see Joshua being introduced not as a leader, but an assistant to Moses. That is very important. Joshua did not start from front. He started from side or from behind. And he starting from behind, it shows a very good example of what we need to do as leaders. When we are leaders and supporting someone else's vision or supporting someone else who is in charge, we need to lead, not as with titles, but we need to lead from behind. We also see Joshua leads Israel in battle against the Amalekites, while Moses was on the hill. So what we see here is that Joshua is already trusted with the responsibilities. He is trusted with responsibility, but not recognition. He does not have a title. He is an assistant. He is not in charge, but he has been trusted with responsibilities. He is leading in the field when Moses is leading on the mountain. This is the kind of leadership that we require. Even if you are not in charge, you can be entrusted with responsibility. You can be trusted with a responsibility even without the recognition. In the book of Exodus 33, verse 11, we also see something else here that make Joshua a very peculiar leader. In Exodus 33, verse 11, the Bible says, "The Lord would speak to Moses face to face, as one who speaks to a friend. Then Moses would return to the camp. But his young assistant Joshua, son of Nun, did not leave the tent." Joshua did not leave the tent. This is very powerful. When everyone else left, Joshua would stay. When moments felt like they are over, Joshua remained in God's presence. And this is something that we need to take from the life of Joshua, because Joshua is the person who remained behind. Maybe, for example, in the church. This is a person who remained in the church, clean the church of the service when no one even notices. This is a person who arrives very early to do the setup in the church. This is the person who stays behind to pray, even if everybody else has gone home. This is a person with the characters of Joshua. When we come even into the community, this person is the person who helped organize things without being asked to do. He solved things or problem quietly. This is a good example of Joshua. Joshua does not leave the tent. He stays there. He stays with Moses. He stays in the Lord's presence. Even in leadership or maybe for the people who are in the authority of the country. There are people who work honestly, even when the systems are corrupt. There are people who stay disciplined, even when no one is watching. And the key truth is that before Joshua led people, because we normally know Joshua when he started leading, but before we know him being a leader, he learned to stay faithful in hidden places. He did a lot of things in hidden places. So, another thing we learn from the life of Joshua is that Joshua was faithful even when he was unknown. And the Bible says that whoever is faithful in little is faithful in much. Joshua showed us something very important. He did not rush the process. Joshua did not compete with Moses. Joshua did not demand visibility. Joshua stayed simple. Joshua stayed faithful. And one thing that we learn is that God does not promote visibility. God promotes faithfulness. Because when Moses was leading, it was very little we knew about Joshua. Until Joshua takes over, that's the point now we come to see Joshua in his full colors. But before that, Joshua is doing things hidden. He's doing things not visible. But this is very important, that he did not rush the process. He did not compete with Moses. He did not demand visibility. Joshua stayed simple. Joshua stayed faithful. And God does not promote visibility. God promotes faithfulness. All leaders who can hear me today, those who are serving in background without complaining, this is very good because you are following the example of Joshua. And this is what we need to do. Even when we are not in charge, even when we don't have those titles, even not when we are not in possession, we need to serve without complaining. We need to serve faithfully in background. We also need to support leaders, even when we disagree. Sometimes you may be having a leader who is in charge, and maybe you notice that things are not working the way you think. This is not the time to bring disagreement. Even if there is something that you disagree, it is good not to come in public, but it is advisable to disagree or to bring that disagreement in private. So when there is disagreement, it is good to support your leaders, to support them. And when there is disagreement, disagree privately, because even in community, we see when nobody is doing what you are is supposed to do, some of the leaders, maybe a leader has been elected, maybe you are not in the position, maybe you want to get that position. Some of the leaders, this is what they do. They start saying bad things about the leader who is in charge, campaigning about what he is not doing. And in most scenarios, those people who are doing that are the same people who are supposed to be supporting that leader. So you can lead even when you are not in charge. You can support the leaders who are in charge, and you still become a good leader. So one strong line here is that your hidden faithfulness is your public preparation. When you are doing things hidden, or when you are doing things in the background faithfully, this is preparing you to be a good public leader. Is a public leader in preparation. Is you are building yourself. You are building your muscles. When you become a good when you become in position, you become a good leader. The other thing we see in the life of Joshua is the courage under pressure. Now we see here in the book of Numbers 13:30, we see Joshua being tested here now. Joshua said, we should go and take possession of the land. Then 10 spies, as they were going, we know the story very well. When they brought the report, when they went for the spy, 10 spies saw giants and they got afraid. They saw giants and they feared. But Joshua saw the same giant. But the Bible says he had a different spirit. He had a different spirit. Joshua and Caleb stand alone and speak the truth. 10 out of 12, they are speaking out of fear. But only 2 were able to stand and speak the truth. This is what happened when we are under pressure. when somebody is under pressure, most likely they don't speak the truth. Even leaders who are, some leaders who maybe are caught in doing some something that is not right, or when you are caught doing anything wrong, maybe by the government, most people are taken under pressure or under torture. And when people are under pressure, most of the time, they speak things which are not true. But Joshua and Caleb, even when they were under pressure, they stand and spoke the truth. Even when the crowd disagreed, they stand and spoke the truth. So one lesson we learn here, that leadership is not just service. Leadership takes courage. Leadership takes courage. If you are not courageous, you will not be able to speak or to stand with the truth. When you are tested, this is the time that you are able to know your weakness. Sometimes leadership means standing when others are sitting down, speaking even when others stay silent, believing even when others give up. So when we are speaking truth, even when it's unpopular, we are following this example of Joshua. Speaking the truth even when we are under pressure. And this is what we need to do. This is what we need to stand with. Even when we are under pressure, let us stand with the truth. Because this is one thing that made Joshua a great leader. Even when you are a leader, maybe in the community, being the one who calms the conflicts, instead of spreading them, you are choosing to be a good leader. You are choosing to follow the example of Joshua. So in this story of Joshua, the other thing we see is that real leadership is not agreement with the crowd. It is alignment with the truth. Real leadership is not agreement with the crowd. It is alignment with the truth. Joshua and Caleb, they chose to stand with the truth. They chose to be courageous enough, to be bold enough, and stand even when they were under pressure. The other thing we see in the life of Joshua is being in the right environment, positioning yourself. Joshua, we have read in the 33:11, Joshua remained in the tent. This is very important. Joshua was always near Moses. And when Joshua is near Moses, it means he was near God's presence. He was near responsibilities. He did not isolate himself. He positioned himself. And positioning yourself is very important. Some time ago, I used to do Uber as a part-time job. And how Uber app normally was, before I did not understand how it was working. But some drivers had many driving apps. Uber, Bolt, what, there were very many. But they were doing this because they wanted to have the high chances of getting more money. But the truth is, those who were loyal with one app, like for example, Uber, they used to get more money sometimes, even before those people who had very many apps, because they were able to position themselves. Because how this app was working, or maybe now, even now, how it works, if the app gives you a customer and direct you to drop the customer to a certain place, the app expects you to stay on that place so that it can look for you for another customer. So, but the moment the app is looking for you, looking a customer for you, it finds that you have already gone with another app. So by the end of the day, because you are not positioning yourself, you end up losing customer. The app end up denying you customers and giving customers to the right people who have positioned themselves. So one thing that made Joshua a great leader is that he was able to position himself. He did not isolate himself. He did not stay away from Moses. He did not stay away from the presence of God. He positioned himself. And by positioning himself and staying in the right environment, he was positioning himself for promotion. And the key thing about this is that you do not stumble in leadership. You position yourself for it. If you want to be a great leader, you need to position yourself for it. Because when you position yourself, just like Joshua, the way he used to position himself, he was always positioning himself near Moses, near God's presence. He was able to get the promotion and become a great leader. So let us learn from the life of Joshua. Let us learn to position ourselves. Let us learn to learn from our leaders, to stay under somebody, to stay and be given instruction on what we are supposed to do. And as we do that, we are being formed to leadership. And by the time Joshua was appointed, nothing about him was new. The only new thing was the responsibility he was given. Joshua knew everything that was supposed to be done. So even his appointment, nothing was changing. Only the title. He was made a leader. But the responsibility was something that he was used to do. And Joshua's lives show us something that we need to follow. That we don't, or Joshua was not accidentally, or he did not become a leader accidentally. He became a leader by positioning himself. Joshua did not accidentally become a leader, but he became a leader by positioning himself. Let us stay close to our leaders, because by staying close to our leaders, we are growing. Let us stay close to where God's presence is strong, not to where it's convenient, not to isolate ourselves from collections, but when we stay close to our leaders, we are positioning ourselves for great leadership. Even in the community, surround yourself with the people who build you, people who are not breaking you, people who will connect you to the growth. Even in leadership for nation, positioning is very key. Positioning in the system, positioning in the spaces that you can learn the discipline, the structures is very key, because you just don't jump into leadership. You position yourself for it. And we need also to understand that leadership is also through attitude. Before anyone follow your direction, they experience your attitude. You may not be in control, but your spirit, what you are doing, will always be able to give you chances of becoming or having higher responsibilities in leadership. So, as I conclude, let us learn from the life of Joshua that when we are not in charge, we can still be leaders. We can still leaders. We can still lead even when we are not in charge. And we need to know the things that Joshua did. Some of the things he did were hidden. We did not know them until Joshua came in the forefront and became being appointed as a leader. And sometimes you could wonder, why? Where was Joshua? Because he was not seen most of the time. But what he was doing was much more, being faithful, even when he was not known. He was faithful to Moses. He had courage. He was courageous from the beginning. Even when put under pressure, he was still courageous. He was still faithful. He was even before he came to the front line, Joshua knew how to position himself in the right environment. So, as I come to conclusion, leadership is very important on how we build ourselves. If we know how to build ourselves, God can entrust us with bigger responsibilities. There is no leader, or there were leaders who are formed not in big moment, but in small, repeated, faithful things. Because of their faithful small things, they were formed or they were entrusted to be big and greater and great leaders. So let us stay committed. Let us learn to do right thing again and again. Let us learn from the life of Joshua. Before Joshua leading in public, he had already proven himself privately. He had already built trust, and trust that is what leadership is looking for. When you are trusted, you are proven as a great leader. People don't follow potential, they follow pattern. They know what, or they know where potential is. If they know you can be trusted, if they know you are faithful, if they know you know how to position yourself, you can be entrusted with a greater responsibility. So even when we don't have greater responsibility, let us remain faithful. Myself, I don't have greater responsibility, but I want to stay faithful to the person who I'm carrying his vision, who I'm serving under, because I know when I'm faithful, when I'm leading, even when I'm not in charge, God can entrust me with great things. And this is all for all of us, that we need to be just like the book of Luke says, whoever is faithful in little will be faithful in much.